Welcome back, everyone, to episode 2. So for everyone still watching, we have our summary output for MIQ up. So this summary output, the goal is to kind of sum up a lot of the different things that we're offering into a slide that can be included alongside a lot of other migration programs like MAP or OLAs. The goal here was to show additional financial impact that might be included alongside the TCO of the OLA or the MAP assessment to see how this can make a further impact past any incentives that are already on the table. So for this migration, it's pretty interesting. So we only actually looked at 4 servers for this one. We got an RV Tools output for just a small workload that was running. They wanted to see what kind of value could be in these servers as they get off of them. And as we looked at it, we realized, for even a small environment, there was actually some pretty good value here. So, Mark, I'm going to leave this to you to walk the viewers through. What are people seeing on this slide? Take us through the sections.
That'd be great, but Chris, I can't see the slide.
Is it not shared? It says stop sharing on my side.
Never mind. I see it. Sorry about that.
We can start again. Luckily, we just did the intro.
That's all right.
No worries.
Start again.
No, because then Jason will just have to cut it in.
Hey, a little humor in the middle of the pod is fun also.
These screen shares get tricky, especially when everyone's got 10 monitors, right?
Yeah, well, this one's unusual, but it's, I think, Chris, we wanted to show this one because it's a small environment. This isn't a big data center exit that's going to take 3 years, nor is it including, thousands of devices, which sometimes we see. So we made this one simple, for our viewers to kind of show you the kind of output and the kind of analysis that we do on whether it's 4 servers or 4,000 devices in a massive data center. So this product has been 11 years in the making. I originally drew this product up in an AWS office, probably in, it's probably around 2013, early on in Atlanta, about how we can reduce this migration bubble with some of our services. And it's been a long time, and we are super thrilled to be presenting this now to customers who are migrating to the cloud. So in this migration, if you think about it, it's small. There's 4 devices. You can see that physical devices in the scope that this customer is going to migrate. And for 4 servers, 12 months might be a little long. They could probably do this in 2 months, but for sake of this podcast, we're showing a 12-month migration. And these are pretty hefty servers with 48 cores and about a terabyte of memory per server. They each have 2 CPUs. The interesting thing is these 4 little servers, we're able to help fund this customer with a little over $75,000 in funding. Part of that reason is because we're an aggressive buyer of IT equipment, and we're trying to give the best possible value to customers. But the other factor is that memory and disk prices that are in servers have really gone up a lot over the last year. So there's no better time for a customer to consider a migration than right now. Now, I've said that for a decade, but this time it's for maybe a different reason. It's that you're really going to get significant value for the hardware that you have in a data center. So
for anyone, don't mean to cut you off, but for anyone out there who thinks about almost any asset they could buy, be it a car or anything else, most of these things that are used for some productive purpose depreciate, whether it be on the books or a fair market value for what you could sell it for. It goes down every year, and that's almost everything. And we're in a weird situation where we are seeing servers, same configuration as they were a year ago, that we will give you more money for than we would have necessarily a year ago. Because we have to look at, okay, what's the memory situation here? What does that mean on today's market? And it means for customers who are looking to migrate, we're able to fund you up front for your migration. So you're able to capitalize on that now, as opposed to hoping that in 2 years when you're done migrating that I hope my memory is still valuable.
Yeah, Chris, it's a great point. It's, we're showing values that maybe if we'd run this exact same MIQ a year ago, it might have shown for the same exact equipment, maybe $30,000. So prices have gone up, and usually prices on computer equipment go down over time. In fact,
Almost always.
Almost always. This is one of the first times I've seen in a decade where usually when we're running these calculations, the funding that we get is greater than the company's book value that they have. And that's really unusual. In fact, I think I wrote a blog a few years ago is, why is my equipment always worth less than the book value? And it always is. Traditionally, historically it is. The customers don't depreciate the equipment as fast as the market depreciates. Well, this right now is a little bit of an exception. And you can see on this output, the average age of these servers is 58 months. Typically, servers are fully depreciated at 60 months after 5 years. So the book value on these is pretty close to zero. And we're able to offer funding of $75,000 because of this hot memory market that we're in. But it's not just that. If you look over to the right, we're estimating that we can probably save this customer about $50,000 over that 12-month period on maintenance from what they would pay the OEM. And we can do that because we offer what we call an elastic maintenance product. So customers only pay for the maintenance that they're using, unlike paying for an annual maintenance contract a year in advance. Why would you ever want to do that when your assets are going to be decommissioned during the migration? So not only is our monthly maintenance charge substantially cheaper than OEM, but we charge for less months because equipment is getting deinstalled.
And what's interesting for customers, because in this example, if people look at the graph that shows our billing, this is a wave-based migration. And we're effectively showing that, hey, we can make sure that we're able to bill you for the devices you still have on after each wave, making sure that this moves with your pace. So it's one of those things that can be really interestingly structured around how you plan to migrate.
Yeah, so the way, to explain how this works is, we show this MIQ output, and the customer agrees with, our proposal. Within a few days, we can stroke a check to the customers for that $75,226. Immediately after that, we can start saving them money on maintenance. So they're going to pay monthly for the products that they're still using. So as they migrate off a certain server, they have 4, say next month they only have 3, then they're only going to pay for the 3 servers they still have. So we have a rental payment. So we have payments of $5,453. If you divide that by 4, what's that? $1,200, $1,300 or so a month per server.
Give or take.
So yeah, the rental payment would drop by that amount, and their maintenance price would also drop. So and that chart below kind of shows what we would estimate on a monthly basis that we would bill this customer during this migration period. And you can see how the payments kind of start at, I can't read the numbers there, at whatever value that is, but eventually they drop off and then they go to zero when all the equipment has been migrated.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we can model too, because it's hard to really understand the value of a migration when you're thinking long term. But we put all these different formulas in to make sure that no matter how your migration is going to move, whether it be a linear, decommissioning of devices, wave plans, if you have unique maintenance contract timelines, that we can really tie all of that into how we structure this for this customer's respective output.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we make some basic assumptions right off the bat. So if we have no information from the customer in this case,
just pretty often, we got to start somewhere, but we also then sometimes prove, hey, there might be a conversation here, even based on limited information.
And a lot of times customers, frankly, they don't even have that. They struggle finding the information. So we can model it and we can come really close to what the actuals are. So in this fictional case of this Acme corporation, we're making assumptions on 2 very important points you brought up. One is wave plans. So, but the beauty about the product that we built is then we can take the wave plan that either their AWS partner or AWS professional services or their other cloud provider has come up with. And we can then tailor this output to that exact wave plan. And the second point is, when are their maintenance contracts coming up for renewal? Well, we can make some pretty good assumptions based on data that we might have, based on how old is the equipment or what the book value is or when they bought it.
When is it likely that you bought it if we don't know, right? And then we can think on what kind of annual bases have you experienced since then. But
exactly.
We don't know. We just don't know until we know.
Yeah, so the point being is that this is an initial estimate, and the more data that we can get from the customer, like those wave plans or those maintenance renewal dates, this can be fine-tuned. And the beauty is it can be fine-tuned almost instantly. We can change the values and produce a different output.
Yeah, it's an exciting thing, and that's the whole thing for our team. And what you mentioned, Mark, you started drawing this out years ago, and unfortunately, what was needed was a lot of math in the meantime, right? We just went over a few different go-to-markets, right, that we're offering, and for all intents and purposes, people look at this and are like, "What did you just, say 75,000? That seems fair." No, it's actually not. It's actually not that. We mentioned the memory being a pretty impactful aspect here. But we suspect that the entire IT hardware market's going to have some interesting volatility in the next few years. Storage, we're watching very closely because we don't know what's going to happen next there. And for your IT gear, it really is going to be a potential best time to sell because there is so much, frankly, capital expenditure requiring a lot of these components. So for us, what we've been doing is building up all sorts of math, so you don't have to, figure out all this stuff, so that we can say, okay, depending on how little or how much information you give us, we can give you something that is going to be, frankly, as accurate as the information you've given us, to the point where with full information, full accuracy.
Yeah, it's a great point because, we have seen now hundreds of data center inventories of assets, of servers, storage, network devices across many different industries. So in addition to, what Chris was saying, we can start with some very basics. If you tell us that you're in the construction industry and you have 4 servers, we have a pretty good guess of approximately how old those servers probably are, approximately what they're worth. But as we get more information, it gets fine-tuned. And some of the tools that we've used to do that, frankly, weren't available 11 years ago when we drew this out on a whiteboard. Tools
there were
like
early
AI
attempts at
tools.
it. We weren't there yet, but there were plenty of early attempts at making what is effectively this, but they didn't get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we built a product that can start with very little from I know what industry, I'm in and how many servers I might have. And then it can get very fine-tuned to, we have tens of thousands of different assets in our database. And as Chris said, we have a lot of math behind the scenes and AI processes that can take additional detail like, what are the configurations of all these assets? Who are the manufacturers? How many of everything do I have? What model numbers are there? What is my wave plan for these applications and these assets?
How's the market changing? How does that change what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a volatile market. So it's hard to say.
Okay. It's a lot of math to make it hard.
And a lot of math that can change very rapidly in this time period. So but we're excited to be able to present this, and whether it's 4 servers or 4,000 servers with a lot of miscellaneous devices, the process and what we deliver is still basically the same. We can fund deals up front. We can then allow you to pay for using those products and us maintaining those products while you migrate off them. Then we can dispose of those in an environmentally friendly process and get you money for those assets and save you money on the support of those assets and of VMware. And then destroy the data, of course, that's on those assets when we're done. All in all, yeah, the net result is we help lower that migration bubble that we talked about in the last episode.
Or eliminate it, because the whole notion of the bubble is an inflation, right? And we have seen some scenarios, especially in this current memory market, where based on the bubble that we're looking at, that we're predicting of increased costs, and we look at how much we can actually fund someone and save them on, especially if we can take on their VMware support, the bubble's gone. It just disappears. So there are scenarios where it becomes especially favorable. You know, if you're on VMware perpetual licenses right now and you haven't moved over subscription yet, maybe you've been thinking about migrating to one of the major hyperscalers, talk to us now, because trust me, it's the time. It's something that when these renewals come up to move to subscription, the costs are going to be pretty substantial. And if you haven't already set up a plan in place, then it can start to really add up over just a few months. So we try to make sure that we can get you out of that long before it matters and, you know, fund you up front so whatever migration costs occur, you can eliminate those.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you didn't listen to the previous episode, we talked a little bit about the migration bubble and what it is. And it's basically that customers migrating are paying double because they have assets in their data center and now they have assets in the cloud and they have to pay for both. And this migration bubble is that amount of extra spend that they have to incur. And we have completely eliminated that bubble in some cases where customers can start their migration and they start saving money right away. And
the CFOs never complained about those situations, not once.
No, that is for sure.
You know, in most sales conversations, the CFO's always got kind of a scowl looking at us, you know, what are you trying to sell me? But in this situation, he looks at the math, he's like, oh, this is really, the books are just going to be flat? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as far as it goes, I don't want to make sure I spoil too much for future episodes. So just to give you guys a taste of what's to come, we're going to dig a little bit deeper on the purchase leaseback motion of this, kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to migrating. So tune in for the next episode.
Thank you, Chris.